has connections up here. Well, his wife does, who I met earlier. Maybe you want to introduce her. Crowd, give her.
I'll get to it.
You'll get to it. Okay. One at a time. Okay, that's it for our prizes. Warm welcome for Mike Max.
Thank you. I don't know if I'm better off up here or down there. I'll do both. I do have some connections to this area. My brother's on Oswinnamakee. My other brother's on Horseshoe. My parents had a place at Breezy Point. I own 4 lots at Breezy Point. My wife's mother lives in Pequot Lakes. Her sister lives in Brainerd. Okay, so I know a little bit about this area. 32 years ago, I was up here on the 4th of July out on the beach on Breezy Point, and I was with a bunch of guys from my hometown of Gaylord, and there was this girl laying out there in a bikini. I walked over to find out more about Breezy Point. On Wednesday, we will celebrate our 28th wedding anniversary. My wife, Jennifer, she's back there today. And she's been coming up to this area since she was just a little kid. So it's great to be here, and it's great to be with you, and it's great to tell you how much we appreciate you coming out today, because it's important that you never quit living. And it's important that you've always got something good to do, and it's important that you appreciate and you do where you are, because appreciation, sometimes as you get older, it's hard to appreciate all the good things in life, because the end is closer than the beginning. I had a great uncle, 97 years old. He's laying in the hospital, and he knows he's not going to leave there alive. And sitting right next to my great uncle Ed is my great aunt Edna. And he's reflecting on his life. And he says, you know, Edna, who'd have thunk it? You and I were born on the same day, in the same hospital, next door neighbors. We grew up together. We were playmates. Eventually, a romance blossomed in high school. Remember when we told our moms and dads that we were going to get married right out of high school, and they thought we were crazy? And we did it. And your dad gave me the farm that he owned outside of town to run. And the truth is, I really didn't know a lot. Didn't have a skill set to make that work. And 3 years later, the bank came and took half the farm. He said, Edna, you never left my side. Times were tough, but you never left my side. Then 3 years later, the Great Depression came, and the bank came and took the other half of the farm. And you never wavered. You stayed right by my side. And then because I wasn't formally trained in anything, I had 12 different jobs over the next 18 years. How many times I'd come home and I had to deliver the bad news. And Edna, you'd look at me and you'd just say, that's okay, Ed. Sit down and I'll fix you a good meal. And later on, when I had that bout with my gambling addiction, and you wouldn't even see the Social Security check because I'd take it right to the casino, and I'd come home with that look, and you knew what had happened. You'd say, don't worry about it, Ed. Things will get better tomorrow. Things will get better tomorrow, Ed. And then later in life, when I'm diagnosed and I'm terminal and I come home and deliver that news, and you say, don't worry about it, Ed. Things will get better. Things will get better tomorrow, Ed. Now here I am, 97 years old, not going to leave the hospital alive. You know that, I know that. And I look back, and I wish I could look back with glory and great memories, but the truth is, this has been one frustrating grind and battle of frustration, and it's been difficult, and it's been hard, and every time I think it can't get harder, it gets harder, and there haven't been a lot of highlights, but there have been a lot of tough times. He said, but I have to say this, Edna, Through it all, you have been the only constant. You have been the one person that has been with me every day of my life, every step of the way, through what has been a forgettable journey, filled with disappointment. You have stayed right by my side. He said, I've had a lot of time to think about this, Edna, and I think you might be bad luck. Sometimes the ingratitude that we have for the people that should mean the most to us. There's a couple guys out here, they go, yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. I'm not going to call them out. What's the joke? There's nothing funny about that. Live your best life, man. I have friends, lots of friends, that are 25, 30 years older than me, and one of the reasons I love having them as friends is they can tell me what I'm heading for next. And one of my nearest and dearest friends is a guy named Harvey McKay. Harvey is a best-selling author, Swim with the Sharks, motivational speaker, international, started his own envelope company. Harvey is 93 years old. And he lives in Phoenix after, when he comes up, he always calls me and we go have lunch. And I always tap Harvey because he's always working to try to get better. And I say, Harvey, give it to me. He likes to talk in short segments so that, because we both got ADHD. And I said, give me the keys to aging. And he says, there's 3. I knew he'd already thought about it. He said, number 1, you're going to forget the keys and you think you have Alzheimer's and you don't. He said, you're going to, every time that something happens after a certain age and you forget something and you run into somebody at the supermarket, can't remember their name, you're going to think this is the beginning of the end. And it's not. He said, number 2, people that you grew up with and people that went through life at the same period of time that you did, some of them famous, are going to die. He said, they're going to die. If you're lucky enough to live long, you're going to see a lot of your contemporaries die. He said, that doesn't necessarily make it easier, but you have to know that if you're fortunate enough to live, you're going to see a lot of people die. So when it comes, it doesn't throw you into a spiral. And he said, number 3, make sure that you make friends with a lot of younger people. But he said the real reason is because they will tell you what's coming next. And because they will give you the energy and the optimism that you used to have when you were that age. And they will remind you that it's okay to be optimistic and to have energy and to believe in something. He's 93 years old, and on this day he was telling me about he's starting a new business. He is. AI, they're taking all the speeches that he's ever given, and they convert his voice, and he's a self-help guy. And so when they unleash this, which is soon, I think in a couple of months, you can ask him a question, and Harvey will give you an answer. You can ask him how to build a resume. What's the most important thing about networking? All these things that he's an expert in, he's going to start a new company, and he's going to do it through AI. He's 93 years old. Because he never quits living. Because he always looks at what's next, not what was. When I was 50 years old, my wife and I went on a vacation with the kids, and we went to Colorado. I'd never been there before. Rented a place out. By the end of the week, we bought a place. She said it was okay. That was 11 years ago. It was a risk for me because I don't step outside my comfort zone that often with things like that. But I just felt I needed to do something to look forward to outside of where I was in the Twin Cities. That has become a memory bank for us. to watch our kids grow up there, to bring friends with us. I've been out there twice in the last 6 months with my high school friends. We usually go once a year. We went twice in the last 6 months, and we go hiking into the mountains, and we have these wonderful conversations about life. And I have this place to look forward to. And we all need some place like the mountains to look forward to in our life. Our happy place. And for me, scared of heights, I learned to deal with my fear of heights. And I did something I hadn't done 40 years. I started downhill skiing again. Isn't that great? Not for the other skiers, but for me. And it's funny, a few weeks ago, I was giving a speech at this church in the morning, and they were telling me about this guy, and they said, you know, he downhill skis and he barefoot skis. I go, wow, that's pretty good. And they go, no, you don't get it. He's going to be 79 years old in June. And I go, and he downhill skis and he barefoot water skis? They go, yeah. And I go, wow, that's something. They go, no, you don't get it. He's legally blind and he hasn't driven a car for 26 years. I go, that's an amazing story. They go, no, you still don't get it. He's the priest at this church and he preaches every Sunday. And I said, I get this. We got to do a story on this guy. And so I went out to do an interview with him, but I had to go to where he trains, his weight training session during the week to interview him. Father Bob White in Victoria, Minnesota. He's been doing it. He's been at that parish for 40-some years. The people adore and love him. And I say, like everybody says, aren't you ever going to quit? He goes, why would I quit when I get to be around these wonderful people? Why would I quit when I get a front row view on humanity every day and I get to walk with people and help people as they try to get through life? He says, you know, I often get asked, is there life after death? And he says, my answer is always the same. We'll find out, but I'm much more concerned about my life before death. Life after death will come whenever it comes for us, but I'm much more concerned with how I live my life before death. And his favorite part of the service is when he brings the little kids up and talks to them and teaches them his lessons, his solemn, his proverb for the week. Because what he's doing is what you all have the opportunity to do. See, I look at you and I say, you got some stuff that you can't leave on the table, and that is wisdom for the next generation and the next generation. And he's given these kids wisdom for the next generation and the next generation. I teach a class at the University of Northwestern in Roseville. And it was a class on, it was sports leadership and ethics and all those kinds of things. And I do tests with these kids and I have them write short papers. And what I find out is how scared they are. And these are people that are pretty high achievers. And so the class is supposed to be about sports and leadership and all those things. But what I turn it into is a class on you can do it. You have more talent than you ever thought. You have resources you've never even tapped into. You have ability. You have talent. You can compete. You can do what you want with your life. You have to decide that and figure out how to make it work. No one is going to sit there and hold you by the hand forever. You have to do that. But know this. I will encourage you. And know this. It's not what you can tell them that they don't know about life. It's that you can encourage those kids. Because I had a man say to me once, he said his one son went to Harvard and his other son went to Stanford. They're both athletes. I said, how did you do that? How did you get them there? And he says, the only thing I can tell you is this with your kids. Encourage them, and encourage them, because the world will discourage them enough. The world's going to tell your kids and your grandkids they're not good enough every day. Social media is going to tell them they're not good enough. But you can step in and say you are good enough. You can step in and say, listen, you've got gifts. You can be that person for them. I think that's why God puts you here, not just to do what you've done, but to give it back. And to find the place that you can give it back. I got a call this winter. This lady named Tammy. And she organizes this thing down in Glencoe, Minnesota. And it's called Dancing Like the Stars. One night, the old schoolhouse with the old stage gym. And it's in the 6th year, and they have 12 different couples from 12 different communities come on, and they compete to raise money. Now, the reason that she did this, she's in her late 50s, is because she wanted a way to help finance educational programs for mental health in high schools. And the reason she did that was because her sister had committed suicide. And so her sister took her own life at age 53. And Tammy said, we've got to do something about this, and we got to start with the young people. We got to let them know. And so she started, and this was her idea, right? And so each year we'll do this, and then it will fund so that we can send liaisons, and we can hire people to go out and talk to the kids in the area schools. So the reason she called me was to be a judge of this contest. And so I went out there with, I had heard about it a little bit. It's near my hometown of Gaylord, but I didn't know a lot about it. And I got there, and the place is packed. And they said, oh, yeah, we sell this thing out in 30 minutes. In fact, they said we have streaming services so that the people from the various towns that are competing have a place each town where they can go up and watch it and watch the people that are competing from their town. So you can watch it at a bar. You can watch it wherever it is because they got this streaming service. And the idea is to raise money. That's pretty impressive. And they have big screens like this, and it's really an impressive night. And I thought, my gosh, and we judged these 12 different couples, all different ages. And I'm watching this. I go, they're going to raise $50,000, $75,000 in one night for this. So we get done, and we name the winners and all those things, and then they come out and they ring, and they said, and now our grand total for how much money we raised tonight, and it comes up on one of these big screens, $560,000 in one night from the people in small towns in southern Minnesota. One couple from Gibbon, Minnesota, population 746, got sponsors, $81,000 worth raised from that community. Another one, $71,000. One lady that says, I'm going to do something with my life. And I don't have to. I could coast. I don't have to do that. I'm at an age where I can shut it down. But that's not good enough. Because I got a calling that's bigger than that. And now she's changing lives at the grassroots level. See, and you might not have an opportunity to do that, but everybody's got an opportunity to help our young people out there. Everybody's got an opportunity that sits in this room to make a difference with your kids and your grandkids, to do something that encourages them in life, because life will discourage them enough. I work in downtown Minneapolis where you see the signs of discouragement all the time. And I love, like I never thought I would, the homeless community. I'm right on Nicollet Mall, and I see it every day. And I get to know some of these people. And I get to see their stories, and I get to see that there by the grace of God goes me. Last year, the Timberwolves were playing in the playoffs, as they are again tonight, and they had just beat the Los Angeles Lakers. And everybody was happy. It was a beautiful night, and I walked outside the arena. I walked across the street, and a man came up to me. I'd seen him before, didn't know his name. He was of the homeless. And he said, "Can you just help me get a piece of pizza?" And I reached into my wallet, and I'm going to be honest with you, I had a $10 bill and a $1 bill, and I thought, doggone it, I wish I just had like 3 ones or a 5. Because I'm going to either have to give him the 1 or the 10, right? 10's too much for one slice, but I was in a good mood, and he was a nice man, and I could see that he wasn't drinking any of those things, so I gave him the 10. And he went on his way. The next night, I was at the TV station working, and the security guy came back, and he says, "There's somebody that insists on seeing you. Did you do something last night where you gave somebody pizza or something like that?" I thought, oh boy, I can't imagine what I did wrong. And I go out there, and there's Michael, the homeless man. You know why he came? To give me 2 $5 bills. To pay me back the $10 I'd given him the night before. That's why I came. 3 weeks later, I was out, and my car was on the fritz right in front of the station. It was 11 o'clock at night, and he happened to walk by. And he insisted on staying with me until the tow truck got there. 3 weeks later, I got a call that he had died. And I went to the funeral. And the people explained to me this was a guy that was active growing up. He went to Minneapolis Henry High School. He did all these things. And then he got sidetracked. But the one thing he never changed was he had this great big heart. And it didn't surprise anybody that he'd come back to give me $10. And I insisted that he keep it. And one of the ladies knew the story, and she came up to me and said, "I just want you to know that he gave me that $10 because you wouldn't take it." All of us have opportunities to make a difference. Last night, I hosted an event it's called Every Third Saturday. It's a place for veterans that's been built. And people can go there that are struggling. And so the fundraiser was last night. And I am seated, but I sat next to one of the speakers, and he was a veteran. And he went to and served us in Afghanistan. And I had a chance to visit with him about what it was really like. And he said there were 25 of us, and we stationed out in the mountainsides. And I said, "Well, what is this? You say an encampment? Is that like tents? Is that like?" No. He said, "We're living in caves, and we're living in the mountainside. And our job initially is to try to help the villages with water, with food, with things like that." But he says it didn't take us long to figure out that the villages weren't that interested in us except for what we could bring them, and they might be sharing information with the Taliban that were around here. He said we go on foot patrol every day. Every day we go on foot patrol to try to find the bad guys in the mountainside. And he said after a while, it just became real simple. They're going to shoot us or we're going to shoot them. He said every day for a year while I was stationed over there was 2 emotions. I only had 2. Fear and anger. Fear that I was going to get shot. Anger once somebody shot at me and I started shooting back at him. Anger because I saw my brothers fall beside me that didn't get to come home. And I got to come home with all kinds of survivor's guilt. And the same fear and anger that I had a tough time holding on to because they have this event because so many veterans suffer from PTSD. And he said, I got to come home with that and try to figure out therapy and where I was at in life. He said every Memorial Day, he showed me a picture of it. He says, I put the pictures of 27 guys that I went over there and served with that didn't come home. And I put it in my backyard. so that people can come over, almost like a Vietnam wall out in D.C., and they can see these faces and some kids that never came home. And then another couple was recognized last night, and they're from Jordan, Minnesota, and they have a horse farm. And so they've donated their horse farm, and they have veterans come out there that want to take a ride on the horses or on a horse-drawn carriage for their families, because it's a stress reliever, because it's a place they can get away from it. And there's a science to horse therapy, too, that goes with that. But the point is this: they're in their mid-60s, and they just wanted to do something to give back to the veterans. And they found this to be the best gift that they could give them. Because like a lot of us, they just felt like there's never enough ways to say thank you to the veterans. And I thought, think about that. All of us can do something. It doesn't matter our age. What's the life we're living before death? What's the thing you could do for somebody else that helps them and makes you feel better and connected in the process? It might not be a horse farm, but I'll bet you there's something that each one of you have. I work in sports, and because of that, a lot of my connections are in sports. I'm 61 years old. I told you I did the downhill skiing at age 50. At age 55, I ended up out in the middle of the riots for the George Floyd, because there wasn't anything going on because it was COVID, and it changed my life, and more people know me for that than anything else, because I was available and I wanted to make something happen and do something. I did the same thing a few months ago when we had that outburst, and I got tear gassed 4 times. And I'm going to tell you something. Tear gas really works. It takes you to your knees, but I got to experience all this stuff at an age that I never thought I would, because I was available to go do whatever it was I could do. At age 60 this last August, some might call this a midlife crisis, my wife, I decided I wanted to play football. So I went to high school, I said, okay, let me scrimmage with you once. So I got to put the pads on and play high school football for a day at Minneapolis Roosevelt High School. There it is. 60 years old. I was a quarterback in high school, and they let me play quarterback. And I got to run the plays and put the pads on, and the sweat was there, and the adrenaline was there, and the making the plays was there, and it was all really, really fun, until my tackle missed his block, and a 230-pound guy said, "This is going to be so fun." And he leveled me. It was a ball. It was, man, to be out there and to remind myself that maybe I can't play at the same level I did back in old Gaylord High School, but I'm still alive, man. I still got things and dreams. And that was just a metaphor for me. Coach Anderson's here from Burnsville. He would have loved to have had me running the option for his team in my prime. You don't quit living. I met Ed and Kathy today. They live up here in the summer, in Florida in the winter. He plays tennis every day. She does yoga every day. You don't quit living just because there's a number next to your name. One of my favorite people that I ever got to be around, one of my great mentors in life, one of my friends, was a guy named Bud Grant. The Minnesota Vikings head coach. And I had the great fortune of spending countless hours with him. We hunted together. We'd come out and give speeches for corporations together. I'd sit at his office because he kept an office at Winter Park. And I'd go to his home. He lived in the same home that he bought in 1966 when he came back to coach the Vikings for the rest of his life. Because he said, it's got everything that I need. That's it. And he taught me so much about life. One of the things he always used to say was, people don't think about this, but one of the most important things in life you can be is a great decision maker. He says, if you can make great decisions, you can have a good life. He says, people don't think about that. They just kind of make the decisions, but if you can be a great decision maker, your life will change forever, but you got to think about the decisions. And you can't get the big ones wrong. Your job, your spouse, there's lots of things you don't want to get wrong. But if you can be a great decision maker, any stage of life, you can have a good life. But he says a lot of people don't know how to make decisions. And the last time that I sat with him, we were sitting in his backyard. And we were just sitting there talking. And he was telling me, he comes to his back, he says, I wish I could hunt as much as I used to hunt. I wish I could do a lot of things the way that I used to do them. He was 94 years old now. But he says, you know what, I come back here and I sit back here and I got great memories. And I can entertain myself by myself, sitting in my backyard, because I have great memories of my life. And he says, you can entertain yourself for a long time if you've lived a life where you have great memories. And then he'd always look at me and say, now you remember that. Like a teacher teaching a student. Write this one down in your mind. And that's why when he left us with a great deal of peace, because he'd known he'd done everything that he wanted to do. And done it really, really well. I believe that part of the key to life is to find a rhythm that keeps you busy. Being busy is one thing. Anybody can be busy. Being busy with things you love to do, that's a whole nother level. This last week has been, because of all the teams doing so well, it's been a lot of work. Last Sunday, I went and saw my dad. He's in assisted living in Hutchinson. Then I drove up to Cragun's Resort. And I gave a speech Monday morning at Cragun's Resort for a municipalities association. And then I came back. And I worked out. And then I went in and did the 6 and 10 on WCCO TV. Then on Tuesday morning I got up and I worked out. And then I went to the Minnesota Wilds practice. And then we went and shot another story. Then I went in and did the 6 and 10. Then on Wednesday I got up and I worked out. And then I went and taught a class. And then that day we were live on the streets in St. Paul with the hockey game. And we did the 4, 5, 6, and 10. Then on Thursday we went back to the Timberwolves. And then we were live at the Timberwolves game at 4, 5, 6, and 10. Then yesterday we went, and they picked at 1 in the morning. As you said, the hockey game and the basketball team plays, but everybody's just so excited. Then the next day, yesterday morning, you get up and you work out. Then you go to the Timberwolves. Then last night I went and hosted that event. Then I drove up here and got here at 12:30. Then I got up this morning and went and worked out. Then I came in here to do this, and now we'll go back, and I've got to be on the 6 and the 10 o'clock tonight from the Timberwolves, and we got to get over to this other charity event that I promised that I'd show up at least for a short time tonight. And if you're going to say, tell me about the last week, assuming we execute the rest of it, I would say it was awesome. It was awesome. I was doing things that I love to do. I was meeting new people. I was interacting. I was learning every day. It was awesome. Because it wasn't that I was busy. It was that I was busy doing things that I love. you're at a stage in life where you're entitled to do busy with things that you love. You will have to go to the assisted living to visit someone like I do my father. We lost my mom 2 years ago. She had dementia for 10 years, and it just was and she was a school nurse, and she was one of my heroes. And they lived a wonderful life. But it reminded me at age 75, she started to show signs, and the decline started. And that's why they did so many things, because they knew any time this could be taken away. And I remember the last time I ever talked to her, where she was coherent. You know, they talk about the rally before they pass, and she grabbed me. And she looked me in the eyes as if she was 40 years old again, and I was her teenage son. And she said, "Remember, we were so lucky." And it was as if she just wanted me to understand that despite this affliction, despite what had happened to her, that didn't change the fact that she felt so grateful for the life that she had lived. And I get to take that with me for the rest of my life. And I get to be around people that show me that example every day. I did a radio and TV and did life for a long time with a guy who loved it more than I did, and I love it, by the name of Sid Hartman. Sid took me under his wing. We became close personal friends. See, you know what that means. And Sid and I shared, we didn't have a lot in common. He grew up in North Minneapolis, Jewish kid. His parents were from Russia, immigrants. I grew up in Gaylord, Minnesota, Christian. Played sports. Sid never played any sports. Sid never graduated from high school. Sid helped sell newspapers on the street corner when he was 9 years old to make ends meet for the family. He had no business becoming the greatest sports reporter ever in this state. He had no business based on his background and what he was supposed to be. He didn't care what he was supposed to be. He cared what he wanted to be. And he became the greatest reporter ever. And on top of that, he was a real estate magnate. He died with, he doesn't even know how many buildings and how many millions he had. But you know what was really cool about that? He didn't really care about it. What he cared about was getting up every morning with a sense of purpose. What he cared about was that he had somewhere to go, somebody to talk to, someplace to be. I did his last radio show with him on the day he turned 100. And it happened by chance that they shut us down after that day because of COVID. Nobody could come into the studio, and we had to cancel the radio show because he couldn't hear well enough at home to do the show, so we just had to cancel. So the last show that he did was when he was 100 years old. And he died 6 months later. Not so much, not from COVID and not so much even from an illness, but somebody said it was the broken heart of isolation. He couldn't go out because of it and be around the people that gave him energy. But Sid Hartman taught me that if you can get up every day with a sense of purpose, you can be incredibly grateful. And Sid Hartman taught me. We might all have a different sense of purpose, but it doesn't matter how old you are. You all get to have a sense of purpose. So find something that gets you up in the morning and gets you excited. Sid was a fighter, man. Even at the end, he broke his hip when he was 95 years old. They put him in the hospital. They said, "You're going to rehab here." He said, "Like hell I am." So you know what he did? He hadn't put an elevator in his house. On the outside of his house, if you ever see his house, there's this elevator that sticks out like a sore thumb. He didn't care. Well, he's 95. What does he care what the neighbors think, right? So that he could get up and down in his house. Because he wasn't going to quit living. He wasn't going to quit living. I mentioned in a lot of what I talked about for a busy week, I say the word working out. Number one thing in my life is Jesus Christ. That's what carries me. My family. I got 2 children in college, and my wife, as I mentioned, at 28 years, are everything. I love my career. But somewhere in the mix is exercising. I work out every day. Now, some say, what do you mean, 5 days a week? No, I mean 7 days a week I exercise. I do something. I go to the health club. Today, I went over to the Cross Lake Fitness Center. And I met Steve Surfers. And he gave me a deal. $10 instead of $20, and that's why I mentioned that today. He said, you got to mention this at your speech. And he said one other thing. What was it? Oh, vote for Jackson. I don't know what that means, but he said, you got to say that to them. They'll get it. And I met Jackson today, too. I'd already heard about him, to tell you the truth. When we were working out and I got done, I looked over on the wall, and there was something on it. It's a nice fitness center. Number one, you don't have to quit exercising. Just do what you can do. If you need to go to the swimming pool, go to the swimming pool. If you can lift weights, lift weights. It doesn't matter. Exercising will fuel your soul. Exercising will give you endorphins and things that I don't understand scientifically that make you feel better about yourself. But on the wall, there was a famous saying that he had hung up there by Theodore Roosevelt. And I went over and read it. It is not the critic who counts, not the one who points out how the doer of deeds might have done better. The credit belongs to the man or the woman that is actually in the arena, whose face is marred with blood and sweat and tears, who strives valiantly, who at best knows the joy of great victory, and at very worst, while enduring defeat, will never have to know the difference of those cold and timid souls that will never experience neither victory nor defeat. Because those cold and timid souls sat on the sidelines during their lives and did nothing. I don't care how old you are. Get in the arena. I know you're losing people, and you can't control that. Get in the arena. I know you have kids and grandkids that need your help, even if it's just that you encourage them and tell them how great they are. Get in the arena. It doesn't matter how old you are. There is always room in the arena, so that your place will never, ever be with those cold and timid souls that know neither victory nor defeat. Thank you very much for having me out here today.